They expected a scandal-chasing political wife. They got a storm. Every seat in the Manchester courtroom was filled. Reporters lined the back wall, fingers hovering above keyboards. The air was thick with tension and low expectations, until Karoline Leavitt stepped through the doors. She wore a bold pink suit, not out of fashion sense, but defiance. Judge Leonard Whitmore, sharp-featured and smug behind the bench, leaned forward as she took her place at the front. "This court is not a campaign stop, Mrs. Leavitt," he sneered, "and your husband's wealth won't buy you credibility." A ripple of laughter danced through the gallery. Karoline didn't blink. Instead, she calmly opened her folder and said, "Your Honor, I'm here to present evidence of a multi-million-dollar bribery scheme involving Liberty Vanguard in your courtroom." Silence fell like a dropped curtain. She held up a printed email. "This is a correspondence between Liberty Vanguard and Granite Holdings, LLC. It documents a $500,000 wire transfer to a nonprofit in New Hampshire, where you're listed as a board member." Reporters froze. A cameraman zoomed in. Whitmore's smirk stiffened. "Mrs. Leavitt, this court does not entertain conspiracy fiction wrapped in legalese." "I'm not here to entertain," she said, stepping closer to the bench. "I'm here to expose." On the table, she laid out more documents. Transfer receipts dated days before controversial rulings, testimony from whistleblowers, and one flash drive containing audio that captured Whitmore's voice discussing future incentives. The courtroom was no longer a room. It was a live wire. Whitmore pounded the gavel. "This evidence is inadmissible until verified. You've brought paper, not proof." Karoline held her ground. "Then verify it. The audio is backed up on 3 servers. The documents are cross-referenced by independent analysts, and 2 former Liberty Vanguard executives are prepared to testify. Your name appears 4 times. Gasps, phones rose. A reporter murmured, "She just flipped the narrative." Whitmore tried to recover, but his tone cracked. "You're playing a dangerous game." "No, Your Honor," Karoline said, her voice level. "I'm playing for the truth, and I play to win." That afternoon, a black car idled outside the courthouse. Karoline received a text, a photo of her and her husband, taken that morning from a distance. No message. Then a second buzz. "Stop digging or Nicholas bleeds." Still holding the phone, she looked up. From the shadows stepped a man with ice in his eyes and steel in his stride. Lucas Kane. "You're smart, Karoline," he said, his voice smooth as glass. "But you're not wise. You keep going, and someone you love disappears." She didn't flinch. "Tell your boss Sentinel doesn't scare me." Kane gave a crooked grin. "I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to remind you that Sentinel doesn't leave loose ends." And then he vanished into the crowd. Later that night, Karoline met investigative journalist Jasmine Carter at a quiet diner. She slid a folder across the table. Inside, documentation on shell companies, transfers, and a whistleblower named David Walsh. "He delivered this," she said, placing a USB on the table. "Emails, ledgers, audio, account numbers." Jasmine plugged it in. 3 folders appeared: payments, judiciary, and one labeled simply Sentinel. They clicked. Inside, evidence Whitmore was a puppet. The real power? Higher, organized, unseen. Jasmine's eyes narrowed. "This isn't corruption. This is infrastructure." Karoline exhaled, steady. "Then we break the structure." The next morning, the courtroom didn't buzz. It boiled. Word of Karoline Leavitt's evidence had exploded overnight. Hashtags trended. Articles dropped. The local news ran her name in bold font. But when she stepped into the courtroom again, there was no smile, no satisfaction, only resolve. Judge Whitmore entered to a flurry of camera flashes. His steps were clipped, jaw clenched. He knew what was coming. Everyone did. "Mrs. Leavitt," he began, the usual sneer traded for restraint. "I hope you've reconsidered wasting this court's time." "Not a second," she replied, producing a new stack of documents. It was Jasmine's doing. Overnight, she and Leo Tran, a digital forensics expert and former NSA analyst, had verified every byte of Walsh's USB. Voice prints matched. Wire trails mapped. The Bermuda shell accounts linked directly to Liberty Vanguard, then to Judge Whitmore. But it didn't end there, Mir. I'd like to submit Exhibits G through L, Karoline said, handing over files that laid bare an entire laundering scheme. The judge's gavel struck. This court will review these materials in due order. But the damage was underway. Screenshots, charts, transcriptions. It all pointed to one word repeated throughout the ledger logs: Sentinel. Whitmore's gaze flicked across the crowd and stopped on someone near the back: Lucas Kane. He was seated, calm, unreadable. The tension ratcheted higher. "Mrs. Leavitt," Whitmore said, voice tighter, "you're presenting an inflammatory case linking this court to unsubstantiated offshore accounts. If this proves false, then I accept the consequences," she cut in. "But if it proves true, enough." But Whitmore's voice no longer carried. That night, Karoline didn't go home. She joined Jasmine, Leo, and David Walsh at a hidden safe house. They pored over files until dawn. But just past midnight, Leo found something buried deeper than the rest: a second layer of password-protected files labeled Hierarchy. Jasmine leaned in. "If Sentinel is real, this is their map." Karoline took a breath. "Then let's burn it." Encrypted and sent to 6 trusted journalists, the files detonated politically before sunrise. Headlines screamed, "Whitmore linked to global judicial payoffs. Who is Sentinel?" Inside the secret political machine. By the time court convened again, protesters had gathered outside. Signs reading "Justice for Manchester" waved beside American flags. Karoline walked through them silently, a woman walking into war. Inside, she submitted the final blow: voice recordings of Whitmore negotiating a ruling in exchange for a $1 million payment routed through a charity linked to Sentinel's ledger. Whitmore paled. "This is slander. This is political." But the prosecution team that had remained silent all week stood. "Your Honor," which one of them said coldly, "we are requesting a federal investigation into these documents. Until then, we motion to place you under immediate review." The courtroom gasped. Whitmore stood, his robes suddenly too heavy. "You think this ends with me?" he hissed at Karoline. "Sentinel sees you." "Good," she replied. "Let them watch me bring the whole thing down." The arrest warrant was signed before noon. Karoline didn't flinch when federal agents entered the courtroom. She had seen this moment coming for days. Judge Leonard Whitmore sat stiff at the bench, his knuckles white against the wooden arms of his chair. His legal robe, once a symbol of unshakable authority, now felt like borrowed dignity. The federal agent stepped forward. "Judge Whitmore, you are under arrest for conspiracy, money laundering, and obstruction of justice." Gasps rang out. Cameras clicked like a firing squad. Karoline stood motionless, her gaze locked onto the man who had tried to shame her into silence. Whitmore stood slowly, his face pale but defiant. "This is a show trial. You're destroying faith in the judiciary." "No," Karoline said clearly. "You did that yourself." As Whitmore was led past her, he stopped for just a moment. "You're proud now, but you don't know what you've started. Sentinel sees everything." "And now," she whispered, "we see them too." Outside, protesters chanted her name. Media vans parked along the courthouse steps. Reporters hounded her for comment. She gave none. Instead, she walked directly to the podium set up beside the Justice for Manchester banner. "Today isn't about revenge," she began. "It's about truth, and truth has weight, even when power tries to bury it." Cheers erupted. Behind her, Jasmine Carter and Leo Tran stood flanking David Walsh, now a symbol of redemption himself. Later that week, the newly launched Leavitt Justice Fund went live, a nonprofit dedicated to uncovering judicial corruption and protecting whistleblowers. Thousands donated within hours. Journalists across the country requested interviews. Her inbox overflowed with testimonies from people who had once been too afraid to speak. But that night, as the office emptied and the headlines rolled on, Karoline sat alone with one final message on her screen. Sentinel is not finished. She stared at it without fear. The mask had been lifted. The war had only begun. She opened her encrypted comms channel and typed a single command: "Trace it. Let them know we're not afraid of the dark." If you found this story powerful, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more true justice showdowns like this one.